Okay, so hi guys. So in this video, what we're gonna do is you're going to go ahead and solve some quadratic equations using a square root method. Now, I do want to emphasize that this is not this is without complex numbers. So I will make a video over that later, but this is for the problems where there are no complex numbers or no complex solutions, meaning like imaginary numbers. So these are the 5 problems that we're going to work on, and so let me go ahead and go full screen here. And the first problem we have is 2x squared minus 1 equals 0. So let me go ahead and write that down. So 2x squared minus 1 equals 0. Now, with complex numbers, with square root method, it is a little bit different. So as opposed to, obviously it's already equal to 0, but here it is okay to go ahead and actually, bring, to get rid of the constant that's, getting in the way, kind of like linear equations. So then we would go ahead and cross this out, and this would be 2x squared is equal to 1. And so basically from here we would just go ahead and divide by 2. And then this cancels out, and we would get x squared equals 1/2. Now, when we have this going on, what we do is we take the square root, and then that's why it's called square root method. And so then we get x is equal to, and here's the thing, so anytime you take the square root square root for when solving quadratics or quadratic equations, either in like with by square root method, we always want to do plus or minus, take the plus or minus solution. So here x is equal to plus or minus, and it's going to be, so if y'all don't remember the rule, the square root of a over b is equal to the square root of a over the square root of b. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. And so I'm just kind of listing out the basic terms here. So this would be the square root of 1. So really, we would have the square root of 1 over the square root of 2. Now, obviously, we know what the square root of 1 is. We can say that x is equal to plus or minus. It's going to be 1. But now we have that square root of 2 on the bottom. The only thing we have to do now is take the rationalize the denominator. So what we would do is we would multiply times the square root of 2 on top and bottom, so that we can get rid of that square root on the bottom. So then we would end up with plus or minus square root of 2, and then obviously the radical cancels out over 2. So my solution is, negative square root of 2 over 2, comma square root of 2 over 2. So this would be my answer. It depends on how they want you to write it. You can also write it as x equals negative square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2, or x equals negative square root of 2 over 2, or x equals square root of 2 over 2. It doesn't matter. As long as you list both answers, that's fine. So now that is the first problem. The second problem is negative x squared plus 3 equals negative 6. So here we go. negative x squared plus 3 equals negative 6. Now we're going to do the same. We're going to basically, it's the same idea. So we always want to get rid of the constant. So in this case, we would get rid, just like in linear equations, we would always get rid of whatever's in the way. So this is going to be negative x squared, and obviously the 3 minus 3 cancels out. We end up with negative x squared equals negative 9. And then from here, we would go ahead and secondly divide. So number 2, divide by negative 1, because we need to get rid of this negative, right? Give me a second, guys. Okay, guys, so I kind of rewrote it to kind of make it more readable. Get rid of the constant, just like in linear equations, and then the second step is to go ahead and divide by negative 1. So we want to do that to both sides here. So then this would give us x squared. So the negative cancels out here. And then also the negative cancels out, is equal to 9. And lastly, my third step, take square root and do plus or minus the solution, basically. So you would take the square root, just like we did before. We would then do x is equal to plus or minus, and it would be the square root of 9. So the square root of 9 we know is just 3. In this case, it would be plus or minus 3. You can leave it like this. You can also, again, just say x equals 3 and x equals negative 3, or x equals negative 3, 3. It doesn't matter. I mean, it depends on your teacher, professor, but as long as you get the right answers. Now, number 3 is a fractional, kind of like a fraction. It involves a fraction here, so it's a little bit more tricky. So number 3 was, what was it? 1/2 x squared plus 5 equals 7. Yeah. Give me a second, guys. Is equal to 7. So here, it's the same process. We're going to go ahead and subtract 5 on both sides. So again, okay. And so then we would end up with 1/2 x squared equals 2. And so we need to get rid of the fractions. So so number 2 would be get rid of the fraction. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and do full screen again. So let's see here. So we want to multiply or get rid of the fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal. So then doing that, basically we would multiply times 2 on both sides here. And so I know that this gets rid of this. So then we end up with 1x squared. So it'd be x squared is equal to 4. And then lastly, my last step is to take square roots. So again, right? I'm so sorry for my handwriting, guys. I take square roots. Okay, so then we would do that. So take the square root of both sides. We would get x equals, and again, remember to do plus or minus, and it's going to be plus or minus 2. So we know that our solutions our x equals -2 and x equals 2. Again, it doesn't matter how you write it as long as you state it. So yeah. Now, number 4. So we're almost done. So number 4, let me go ahead and see. Alright, so number 4 is a little bit tricky. We have 1/2 x squared equals 3/5. So we want to be careful with this one. Let me just write it a little bit over here. Okay. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. You can multiply 1 to x squared. So, I mean, one of the ways you can do this is x squared over 2 equals 3/5. And then just cross multiply. So, x squared, 5x squared is equal to 2 times 3, which is 6. So, be equal to 6. And then you would just divide both sides by 5. And then from here we have x squared equals 6 over 5. And then finally take the square root of both sides. So we would have x equals plus or minus the square root of 6 over the square root of 5. And then you would just like multiply by the conjugate, or rationalize this basically. So the square root of 5 on top and bottom, and this would end up being the square root of 30 over 5. So, and also, yeah, like I said, plus or minus. So don't forget that plus or minus. So x would be negative square root of 30 over 5, comma square root of 30 over 5. That's one way to do it. The other way is to just multiply it by the reciprocal. So you would get like, so let me do it again. If we have, so other method would be 1/2 x squared equals 3/5, and we would go ahead and multiply times 2 on both sides. We would get x squared is equal to 6 over 5. Just take the square root. And then finally, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 6 over the square root of 5, which is the same idea. It's going to be x equals plus or minus square root of 30 over 5. Since we already did it, I don't want to do it again, and you would just say x equals a negative square root of 30 over 5 comma square root of 30 over 5. It's whatever works best. Those are the 2 ways in which we can do it. So then I think the last example that we're doing, this one is a challenge one. So negative 1/3 x quantity squared is equal to 4. Yeah. So number 5, this is the last example, and this is a challenge. So we want to do, what was it? I'm sorry. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so give me 1 second. All right, so this is our last example for this problem. So here we have, so we want to be careful, right? If I square, if I say -1, or I'm sorry, if I say, for example, let's say -1/3 x squared, this is not the same as -1/3 x squared. So they're not the same. We want to be careful. So really, this is -1 squared over 3 squared, okay? And then from here, we want to go ahead and then it's going to be times x squared. So then this is going to be equal to 4. And then finally, we would do 1 over 9 x squared equals 4. So you have to be careful, right? Make sure that you square the whole fraction and also the x. Do not basically do not do this because it's not the same thing. They're not the same thing. So then, like I said, we can just say x squared over 9 is equal to 4. We can multiply both sides by 9, right? And then we have x squared equals 36. And so, again, we would take the square root, and then we have x equals plus or minus 6. We always want to do plus or minus. Okay, so the solutions are x equals negative 6 and x equals 6. Now, the last thing that I want to go over are the basically the process. So, number 1, get rid of constant on both sides. So anytime we have like 2x squared minus 1 equals 0, we want to do this, right? And then number 2, we want to go ahead and take positive and negative square root. So really, if I have x equals, if I have, for example, x squared equals negative 3, I'm sorry, x squared equals 3, if I take the square root, I'm going to end up with x equals plus or minus 3. Plus or minus square root of 3. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh my god. So I would end up with x equals negative square root of 3 and x equals square root of 3. So those are just the two things. And also the last thing is if basically the idea that a over b x squared is not equal to a over b x squared. So these are the 3 things that are the takeaway of this video. So with that being said, guys, that is going to be it for this video. I'm so sorry if it was kind of lengthy. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching. And also, please like, comment, and or subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.